Give me 1 second. Okay. Hello, everybody, and
Hello.
welcome to today's Space Roundup. My name's Stefanie, and I have today with me Jordan.
Hi,
And
Stephanie. Good to be joining you today.
nice of you having you here. Jordan is a passionate photographer, and everybody, please say happy birthday to his daughter because she is about to turn 1 today.
Yeah, she's going to be partying all day. am still going to work a little bit today, but we'll celebrate later.
And I have to real quick check. Okay. I just had an enormous echo in my ear. I hope you weren't able to hear it, but now I can actually concentrate about what's going on here at the launch site. Look at that. We have the second tower section attached already.
Ooh.
Are they still in the process?
Yeah, it looks like they're still. I think some of the photos we have might show them bolting it up, but it looks like they're getting ready to stack that second segment, so that's exciting.
Yeah, it is. And why he said that right now is after yesterday's Space Roundup, I was going through some footage because I wanted to see some action. And I have my screen shared. So Nathan, if you could put that up, because I thought that is very, very great
That's
to
an
see
awesome shot.
with how much force they do that. And it's not even a shot.
Man,
If I press play here, you can actually see if it plays.
that guy should dress up like Thor for that job.
There we go. Look at with how much power he
Oh,
forces it in there. I always love to see how those workers
oh, and they're
are
doing
doing
that, and
that.
it's with the humidity, it's over 100 degrees. Like I can't imagine. That's a workout.
So we have a lot going on at the launch site with those tower segments, and we are as well talking about one of our favorite topics, Starliner.
Oh yes, Starliner's been in the news a lot lately. Do you want me to go ahead and go over that? What I discovered last night?
Are you so eager to talk about it? I know we had a quick discussion because Jordan really wants to talk about this, and I said like we gotta start at the Starbase site today, and here we are.
Oh yeah, we can save that for later. So
Yeah, so let us save that for a little bit later. And as we can see, ooh, if we can get the live cam up again, Nathan, that would be awesome. Because when I checked earlier before we started this live stream, I saw that they unhooked the first segment and were moving the crane over to actually attach the second one. Do you know how far along they are, Jordan, or do you have an estimate for us when they're gonna stack the second part?
it looks well. The first one was probably a little different because that's actually attached to the concrete base, but my guess would be the next few days. It's hard to say for sure because I know we've got all those road closures this week. So they could be planning to stack it really quickly from here on out, or they might run into some things that slows them down. But since they're already attached, and we just saw yesterday that they were still attached to the first section, I'm guessing they're gonna stack that pretty soon. So
Yeah.
there's
And
exciting stuff.
it is exciting. We actually wanted to get some better shots from our photographer John yesterday, but due to the road closure, there was no way of him getting out there later the day. And so we have to wait until Monday, and then hopefully we get some better images if they didn't even stack it until then. We've
Yeah,
seen with the first section how fast
for
that
those of
was.
you that don't know, there's just a 2-lane road that goes out to Boca Chica Beach, and it's a public beach. But anytime SpaceX needs to move something large, they have to shut the road down completely. There's actually a border checkpoint about 20 minutes before you get to Starbase. So traffic can get pretty crazy going in and out of there, especially when there's a closure. So it sometimes limits John being able to uh, get access to photograph stuff. So he's pretty good though at getting out there ahead of it, or in the middle of the night when they're moving some of these larger objects.
Yeah, he jumps up and just lets us know I'm on my way to Starbase, and that's basically it. And then he's just out there. So that's that for the Mechazilla 2. I think we didn't have captured that much action from the Mechazilla 1. Do you have any info about that? So did we have some testing?
We've got our. I don't think we had any testing that I know of, but sorry, we're
Oh,
also talking to Nathan in our headsets. So some of these questions he's filling in. I don't know if you can hear him on the live stream,
yeah,
but yeah, I'm guessing you can't. But that's he's helping support our stream today. So
yeah. And it's great to have you all here. I think I didn't even say hi to y'all. So hi everybody. Thank you so much for joining. And I hope you're gonna have a blast with us today. Second time for me here, and today with
me as well. Yeah, and this is something we do. How often every week, Stephanie?
well, we're aiming for every single day to give you the latest and greatest news about Starbase and all the other launches that are going on there, and soon as well, scientific research. Yeah, basically, we want to cover it all with you.
Yeah, their Y is consistently growing and training their team. So we're gonna have all the people capable to bring you news every day. So this is definitely, if you're not subscribed already, um, or to Y Plus, the second channel, please go ahead and hit that notification bell icon, and you'll definitely. I mean, we've got, I think, one of the best photographers out here at Starbase, if not the best. So it's exciting times.
It is definitely. Yeah, and that's it already for the launch side. And if we want to move over to the build side, because there is so much action, they are, of course, working on the other tower segments that are still at the build site. And I think Sanchez, right, behind the mega base. Is that
Yep.
correct?
Hmm.
Okay.
With how hot
And
it is today, how humid.
yeah. And if you real quick share my screen again, Nathan, then I can give you some really nice high resolution video here as well. As you can see there, whoops, there's the bus. They have
The
so
shuttle.
many man lifts up here, and you see people walking around everywhere. Because the one big difference between Mechazilla 1, or Tower A as it's called now, and Tower B is that they installed, I think, all the internal systems and all the pipes and everything. Is that correct? After the tower was built. And with this new tower, they are just whew, installing it on site basically before they are stacking the segments on top of each other. As you can see, there is a lot of internal works going on. And that will make the stacking process so much faster.
And they actually brought the second section from the port out to begin work on that as well. And
Whew,
these shots are from John Cargile, and he's actually in the
yeah.
chat right now. So if you want to ask questions
Oh,
to our photographer, go right ahead. Hop in
yeah,
the
what
chat.
went on? Yeah, there's, as you can see, like all the heavy equipment in there. And then they basically, first they can reach all the segments much better on the ground, of course, before they get stacked, and they makes the stacking progress so much faster as well. So yeah, if any one of you has any questions for us or for our photographer John, he's in the chat. Maybe send him a nice thank you for your hard work getting out there, giving us all these fantastic images, because we really appreciate these views.
Yeah, and
This
I
is
know
what,
one thing, Stephanie, people are always wondering is when the next launch happening, which is IFT5, the booster catch. We haven't had any further updates on that as of yesterday, but it's still looking like early August, maybe first or second week of August, according to the last post from Elon on X. So definitely getting excited for that. If you're able to get a flight down to Brownsville or Harlingen, Texas, um, It's definitely worth it. There's plenty of good places to watch from. Maybe we should even do a video on best sites to watch launches from, because that would be,
Yeah.
I, I know when I was first visiting out here, I was always wondering and had to do my own research. So
So where did you watch the last launch from?
the last one I went to, I believe, almost to the island on Highway 100, because the road
Ooh.
kind of veers in and you're just about right outside the exclusion zone. So it's just as loud as the island. You can't quite see the base of the tower like you can from
Yeah.
SPI, but it's still, um, you don't have to get up quite as early and go camp out at Isla Blanca for 4 hours, at 3 a.m. So I got a little more sleep, but still got to catch the launch. So,
Yeah, we actually camped with the whole family at the Raptor Roost, and it was a
oh
really
yeah,
short launch again because Starship lifted off and then it just disappeared
the
behind the clouds
clouds.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get clear skies for this next one. We should. We've had two cloudy launches these last two, so.
Yeah. Oh, the first one was pretty fast as well. It was just lift off and it was gone. And we didn't see the whole spiraling. We just found out about it after we saw the launch footage later on.
Mhm,
But we had
mhm.
no idea what was going on. Yeah.
Some beautiful shots of, I believe that's the first section of Tower 2 being attached. Was that yesterday? This is
I
all
think that
happening so fast that it's hard to,
Yeah, that was the day before yesterday. So
or
that
two
was
days
the
ago.
11th. Yeah. Yeah, now we already have the second one rigged up, basically. Yes.
Yeah, next we can discuss booster, which I believe is booster 12, which is also insane to think. How many of these they've built.
Yeah, it's crazy. They just pump out one after another.
So they were doing all kinds of tests on the booster, I believe, prepping for static fire, and we covered a little bit in yesterday's roundup, the spin prime tests, where they're making sure the flow of fuel to all the engines is unimpeded and is going smoothly. Um, so I think they're gonna do one or two more wet dress rehearsals, maybe just one, because they're already getting pretty good at this whole Starship thing. Um, so that's about all I know on the testing for the booster this week. But they did do a quick ship disconnect test. Nathan was just telling me in the headset. So yeah, just making sure everything's still working correctly. I'm not sure how many more launches, what the future looks like for operations as far as Tower 1 compared to Tower 2. So we'll see, but it's still working fine. It's held up through 4 launches now, so we'll see if it survives the catch or the catch attempt later next month.
Yeah, that's always like the interesting question, how that's going to work out. I mean, if they have telemetry that tells them that the booster won't make it beforehand, then they will probably aim for the ocean, right? Do we have any updates from the FAA to that?
Not that I've heard,
Does
but I
anyone
haven't.
know in the chat?
Yeah, yeah. Feel free to chime in. Um, I would guess. I believe they had to make sure there wasn't an anomaly from the last launch, but I know. I think if there wasn't, I think if they show that it landed pretty precisely where it was intended to land, that they're going to go ahead and improve the tower catch. That was the last thing I read on that. So.
Yeah, they're really bad for that. Yeah.
Oh yes, and then some other news relating to the FAA. SpaceX did request for quite a few more launches. Was it a 2025 or 24? Yeah, for next year they requested to do I think 25 launches, so that would be a cadence of 2 per month, or maybe they're going to speed up through the year. But that's pretty incredible when you think, last year I think they had 2. We've done 2 so far this year, so that's quite a
Yeah.
few, and that could be related to what's going on at the Cape down there in Florida with, I think, Blue Origin and maybe
Yeah.
Boeing requesting that, Starship launches be limited somewhat so that they're not kind of hogging the launch pad. Uh, so that's interesting. So SpaceX says, okay, well, we'll just use our dual tower setup in Texas. So hopefully all
Yeah,
goes well with that. We'd love to see, me living here, I'd love to see as many launches as possible, and it gives
yeah.
friends and family more chances to come see a launch as well.
To have a second space coast, basically, that would be really great. What I see here at the Cape as well is how and from being there at the Starship launches, how unbelievably loud it is. And if I really think two and later even more launches, then what does it say? What did he say? Like two per day? If I live here and I have two Starship launches per day, man, that's gonna be some quiet life's over.
Yeah. Yeah, well, with all these thunderstorms we've had here this last week, and I know the booster's been rolled out, so I'm always like, is that a thunder or are they,
Yeah,
doing a static fire right now? Because that's going to become a lot more common as well.
yeah, definitely. So that's about the boosters and the Starship launches. And I think Jordan had a really interesting topic that he wanted to cover today.
Yeah, so there's kind of, sorry, we got Nathan in the headset again. Go again. Okay. Yeah, he's gonna work on pulling up some images possibly, but we've got I just read last night about Starliner. So it's currently depending on how you want to view it or call it, but it's stranded at the space station because there's some concerns with the thrusters. Uh, they've been overheating, and so I was researching the design of Starliner a little bit, and they have the thrusters housed in what they call dog houses, like little structures to kind of protect them. And so the issue they found is that between the bursts, each time the thruster fires, they might be firing a little too rapidly and heating up inside that protective structure called the doghouse. And so they're testing this on the ground. I want to say where's their test site in New Mexico? Yes,
Yeah.
White Sands, and their test facility. So they're trying to replicate the issue on the ground, make sure that the thrusters aren't going to fail or overheat to a point of a catastrophic failure before they bring those astronauts back home. So it looks like NASA did admit that's a design flaw, and they're working on it. But it's very very interesting and kind of concerning. Hopefully they can. Maybe they can slow down those pulses in between the thrusters firing, just to minimize the overheating.
So
Or
they
yeah,
had 28 thrusters, right, on Starliner? Am I
I'm
right
not
there?
familiar with the exact amount, but that would
Okay.
because they're kind of in a ring
Yeah.
formation.
Oh yeah, they're the dog houses. And I think they had issues with like five of them, and then they recovered one, if I'm right there. I know
Okay.
Felix talked about that. So um okay, so Nathan just said that they recovered all but one. And I'm interested in the frequency of them firing. So why did that happen? They had to fire them more frequently, right? So they thought they would have more time in between those bursts for them to cool down, but that didn't happen because they had to fire them more often, and then they overheated. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I don't know if they had to or if it was due to a software error or a design flaw. But yeah, it's kind of surprising that they didn't catch this, in testing before launch,
Yeah.
or maybe it's only an issue that, you can detect in space. But yeah, I hope they get that sorted out. I mean, I do know people have already talked about like a Dragon capsule rescue, or which would be pretty humiliating
Yeah.
for Boeing. But we always like to see
Yeah.
success. We want to see more players in the space race, and we don't want to just rely on one provider for everything. But um, so we hope they work this out. But it's definitely interesting to follow and kind of an exciting. I
Yeah.
wonder if they'll make this into a movie one day. It kind of reminds me of Apollo 13, where they have to figure out how to
Oh,
get home in the was it the landing capsule instead of the actual capsule that was supposed to bring them home. So
yeah, not just that. Like they had one
there
sick
was so
crew
many.
member, and it was just one mishap after the other, and then
Yeah.
they made it home. But I wouldn't say it's as bad as Apollo
Oh
13,
no,
so
no,
they're
no.
safe on the at the ISS. Oh, yeah, there we see the docking. And I think even, what was her name now? Sumi, right? And
Hmm.
she had to manually take over for an amount of the docking, if I remember that correctly. Yeah, there they are.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so kudos to them for handling the situation. I mean, I think the
Yeah,
fact that it already successfully docked and everything is a good, you
that's
know,
very good.
a good sign for it returning safely. But yeah, I definitely would hope they'd err on the side of caution because it's been quite a while since we've lost a life on a space-related mission. I think the last one was with Virgin Galactic on their one of their test pilots with their they're definitely like the public facing side of just, you want to go up to the edge of space as a citizen and you can pay, I think it was a couple $100,000 in the beginning. But yeah, that's the really last major tragedy we've had as far as that. So
Yeah.
without going back to the shuttle era.
Yeah. So 5 out of 28 thrusters failed, and I think they wanted to switch out a valve, if I read that right. But the first they want to conclude. So those tests are ongoing this weekend, right? And then after they finish those tests, hopefully then tomorrow, we're gonna know more about this and what actions they will take in regards of the service module, right? Um, so oh,
Oh,
yeah,
that's right.
Nathan. Nathan,
Yeah.
maybe you can do us a favor, and really, because you've got so many nice things to say, to unmute yourself and be.
Okay,
Mm.
we've got Nathan on our headset reminding us that we just had that issue on the upper stage of Falcon 9 with the Starlink launch the other night. We had the insulative material filling with, I think, liquid oxygen, and then and eventually leaking and failing. It did successfully deploy the satellites,
Mm.
but it was the first, yeah, to a lunar orbit or lower orbit. Sorry, not lunar. That'd be quite quite far out there. But we've got this was the first issue in 300 launches, so they've grounded everything while they figure this out, and so that would preclude a Dragon capsule rescue right now. So it's kind of an interesting dilemma we've got, and we've also got Polaris Dawn that's supposed to be coming up in a few weeks or 2 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
So,
so
so
that's a big
Nathan,
question mark.
you actually will be able to talk to everyone. I mean, you already know if you watch us for longer by now, Nathan, and he can give us some more insights about what exactly happened with those insulation
Hello, hello.
blankets.
Uh, so it does. The main problem wasn't necessarily the insulation blanket itself. You can definitely see it in the insulation blanket with it basically puffing up like a giant balloon, or I kind of think of it like a popcorn bag. If you've ever thrown a piece of popcorn, like a popcorn bag, into a microwave and then saw it pop up like that, very similar. It basically just inflated because there was a liquid oxygen leak. Now, I've compared the actual launch. So this was group 9-3. I've compared it to the closest launch I could get, which was group 9-2 for Starlink. And the thrust and the trajectory, everything seems to be good. So despite all of the like the leaks that you can see and all of the ice forming, it didn't seem to be a very significant leak. But whenever they went to relight the engine. So this was actually able to complete the full burn. I can skip ahead a little bit, and you can see. Oh, it was able to get all the way to second engine cutoff, and the actual final speed was roughly where it should be. So it wasn't a large leak. Didn't seem like too big a problem, but and if this was like many other Falcon 9 launches where they only light the engine once, this wouldn't have even been too big a problem. But because they had to relight the engine for the orbit they wanted to get to in this launch, the engine, which is very delicate, especially on relight, we've seen that with Raptor just completely disintegrating at times, especially during IFT1 is a good example. Lighting an engine is hard, and if you have any problems. You can get fuel flowing the wrong direction. You can get fuel mixing incorrectly and then igniting in areas where it is not supposed to ignite. So they went to relight the engine. The engine blew up, and the satellites were in too low an orbit. And we don't have full confirmation from SpaceX just yet about the fate of those satellites, but most
Yeah.
indications basically point to them not being able to keep a stable orbit, and they've likely re-entered because the lowest point of their orbit, the quality for this isn't the best, but you can make it out a little
Far too
bit.
low.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
138 kilometers in altitude. That is also basically the lowest point of the orbit due to the way orbital mechanics essentially works. So the satellites were still flying very low. And yes, like 138 kilometers is not going to be fun if you are a person. It's basically no atmosphere whatsoever. But when you're flying extremely fast, that atmosphere can be a lot more. Even a tiny bit of atmosphere can provide massive amounts of drag relative to relative to higher orbits.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
that's
they get
basically what
sucked
happened.
right back down again,
Yep.
slowly but steady. Yeah. So what do they even need this blanket for? Like, what is it for? Why is it
So it's
there? I mean, they go with the best part is no part, so it has to be a good
yeah.
reason, right?
Seems like the stream isn't quite wanting to load, but let me try and reload it real quick. Essentially, that's a thermal insulation blanket. They, um, it basically provides, it basically gives the engine the ability to keep a constant temperature. So, like I said, relighting an engine can be very difficult, and it's the complexities of a rocket engine. I mean, it's called rocket science for a reason. Uh, mean that everything needs to be very precise, and if you're constantly heating up due to the sun hitting your components or the heat radiating off the engine, and then cooling down whenever you go into shadow, then heating up again and cooling down, that can cause damage over time, and it can cause problems such as this leak. Obviously, this leak wasn't caused most likely by thermal problems, but it can cause problems such as that.
Yeah, and
We
they're going to investigate this pretty in depth, I think. And we were discussing after the stream yesterday that this is probably something that happened in production, or
yeah.
yeah, it wouldn't be design really, because this is a pretty solidified design, right? So
3,000 flights,
yeah,
Yeah.
run
Wow.
over
just
3,000 flights for a Falcon 9 engine.
That is
wow.
pretty impressive, yeah.
That's basically just multiplying it by 9. There's been 10 Falcon Heavy flights, which is 28 engines each.
Something
Or is it
interesting to think about
27?
is, what if this had happened with a crew on that second stage? Uh, would they have a
There,
recovery method for Dragon at that point?
so Jared Isaacman, who is the commander of Inspiration 4, we mentioned him. Uh, uh, yeah, it seems like I'm having some connection problems with the video.
Okay.
Let me try and reload it again. But essentially, oh, it might be because I have Starliner's launch still playing in the background. There we go. Um, but essentially, Jared Isaacman, who is actually supposed to be the commander of the next. Okay, uh, one last
Okay.
try.
Yes.
Who's supposed to be the commander of the next crewed launch of Dragon and of the Falcon 9. He essentially stated shortly after this anomaly that Crew Dragon would have basically been completely fine. So the main reason this was a problem was because these Starlink satellites have a very tiny thruster relative to the size of Dragon's thrusters. So the Crew Dragon, for example, has big enough thrusters to get away from a fully firing Falcon 9. We saw that on the in-flight abort. It has a lot of thrust. It can change
Yeah.
its velocity very easily. In fact, had an anomaly like this happened, they likely would have still been able to make it to their destination if they had enough fuel.
Wow.
It's the
Yeah, we kind of forget
problem.
the powerful thrusters that are still there, right? Just in case
Yeah,
of they need to abort or to quickly launch away from the Falcon 9 main stage.
yeah, correct. So they have quite a few abort options. Not to mention, this is a Starlink launch, and I was actually talking about this to um, Jonathan, who's typically running the back end.
Yeah.
We basically um, thought like SpaceX is launching um, like twice a week roughly at this point. And yes, they can reuse the first stage, so those are going to get flight proven. Their SpaceX is going to focus a lot of attention on those because each of them can be flown multiple times.
Yeah,
For
and
the
so
second,
fast as well. I have
oh
to
yeah,
add that real quick because I see them. They arrive here at the port, and then 2 days later they're gone already, and then a day later another one arrives, and 2 days later it's gone again. It's just
yep,
so streamlined that
we
they
can see that
every
now.
time, yeah, it is fascinating. And then you take a bus ride at the Kennedy Space Center, and then you see one of them sitting there at Hangar X shortly before being refurbished. It's just fascinating the cadence
That's
they are
cool.
Yeah,
doing.
and but the which is very good for the first stage, but the problem is the second stage, unlike Starship, uh, and essentially against SpaceX's goal, which is why they're building Starship, is not
Full
reusable.
reusability.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the second stage is thrown away after every launch, which means if they're launching 300 times in 1 year, they need 300 second stages. And that means you need like full factory production cadence and uh, excuse me, especially for
Sorry.
the
Yeah, you don't
Yeah,
think about that, how many of those they're building for all these Falcon 9 launches, because you just get used to seeing the first stage come back, but they're constantly having to build new upper stages.
and I had to
correct.
think about remember the times when they were driving with the boats after the ferrying house, for example. I think
Yep.
now they just fish them out of the ocean, right? Do they still do that regularly, or is it more
Yes.
like, yeah, perfect.
Yeah. They just fish them right out of the ocean because they've managed to essentially seawater proof them,
Yeah.
Yeah,
which
they're
That
like,
is
was
let's just.
fun.
It was fun, but they're like, ah, this is too hard. Let's just let them float.
Yeah. It
yep.
was so much fun to watch too.
It was so
Like,
close
come on,
sometimes, like
go
it
get
would
him.
just miss the net.
I think
Yeah.
they actually managed to do it successfully one time, if I remember
I
correctly.
remember one time as well. Like I don't know
But
if more often, but one time I was like, look at that.
Yeah.
I believe it did damage the net though on that landing. Like the only successful one, if I remember correctly, it did damage the net. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting once we have, which is crazy to think about, but let's say it's 2025, we're having 2 Starship launches a month, and we're catching 2
Okay.
boosters. Uh,
yeah.
Yeah.
how many booster catches can they get in a row? It's gonna feel like the drone ship landings all over again.
Oh yeah. And the I am SpaceX has had a near perfect track record. This is the first anomaly since I believe 2016, and this is actually the first anomaly since SpaceX has successfully been able to land the first stage, which
That's wild.
is also
Yeah.
kind of crazy to think about because I believe the last one was Amos 6, which wasn't even an in-flight anomaly. It was an on-the-pad anomaly during a wet dress rehearsal.
Wasn't that
People's
the Facebook satellite?
Yes, that was the Facebook satellite.
Oops.
Started the long-running feud between Musk and Zuckerberg.
Oh, oh no.
And the one before that, I think, was CRS-7.
Yes, which
And I have a
was
piece of that
very.
Dragon
Oh wow, really?
of the solar array. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that launch was also a big problem because they lost the one of the few remaining spacesuits as well as the
Oh
international
wow.
one of the international docking adapters
Oh,
that was going to go to the ISS. So essentially, actually we can because we do still
yes,
have
please.
that. Oh wait, I realized I just closed the
We're
Starliner
just
video.
doing a walk down memory lane today.
Yes.
Yeah, I
This
mean,
is
it's
like an
really
8-year
anything.
space roundup for SpaceX.
But essentially, Starliner is taking up one of only two ports that a Dragon 2 or a Starliner capsule can dock to. So
Mm.
Dragon 2 includes Crew Dragon and the new Cargo Dragon. And essentially during that CRS 6, you said?
CRS 7, I thought it
CRS
was.
7.
Yeah.
The They had one more docking adapter, which would have allowed more capsules to dock at the International Space Station. And one of the things that actually delayed Starliner was traffic at the International Space Station because they didn't have any docking ports available. And due to that failure, they lost the docking adapter that basically would have alleviated a lot of the traffic situations that are happening now. So it's crazy how like even like one failure can just cause quite a few things, which is why it's pretty nice that this failure did only happen on a Starlink mission because SpaceX is launching them so often now.
Yeah.
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 Hopefully, this shouldn't delay too many things for too long, and due to the track record of reliability of the Falcon 9, hopefully it shouldn't take too long for them to find out what happened, especially because SpaceX and SpaceX is kind of known for moving fast and breaking things and then
Yeah.
fixing them. I mean, you
And
can look at Starship.
especially with Polaris. I mean, I was so much waiting for this launch to happen now, and now you're telling me it's delayed. Oh
Oh,
no.
yeah, I actually got
So
to meet Jared Isaacman once. He's a
Oh,
very
really?
amazing person, yeah.
Yeah, he seems like a really down to earth, but just like a incredible guy. Yeah, I think at the lunch, Stephanie, someone was with us that had flown one of his jets,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
and he was showing me
Yeah.
video, and I'm like, that is so cool.
That is awesome. Oh
But
yeah.
for
He does
those of
love
you
those
that don't
jets.
know, they're gonna have the first, is it commercial spacewalk
Correct.
on Polaris?
Polaris.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's why it's so exciting, and I believe they're also gonna go much further out than the last mission, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, this will actually be the assuming this launches before Artemis 2, which is it's actually up in the air now, especially considering we're not sure the anomaly on the
But
second stage.
wait a second. You're talking about Polaris Dawn launching before Artemis 2? I
Yes.
mean that is why is that why is that in question? I mean,
Because so
it
Artemis
was
2 has been pushed back quite a bit.
yeah.
And but now due to this anomaly on the second stage of Falcon 9, um Polaris Dawn might be pushed back quite a bit as well. And
Quite a
uh,
bit. Sorry, you have to be more specific. Like, how much time does it take to
the
go through this investigation?
the problem is we're
You're
not
breaking my heart
sure.
right now.
The problem is we are not sure. As of now, we at least are not aware of the cause of this anomaly. We know we can see some things, such as that it is not a very large leak. It is. It appears to be somewhere that is not near anything combustible, and it appears not to be affecting the thrust in any significantly measurable way.
But it
So
caused an RUD of the engine at
yes,
secondary light.
yeah. So we don't really know how all of this happened. For all we know, it could be a manufacturing mistake, or perhaps it was an engineering flaw that is only just now being discovered. They can happen. Uh, and we can see that even on something like a Boeing craft. The engineering mistakes can build up and they might not show on say the first 1,000 flights, but they might show after the first on the 1,001st flight. So this could be an engineering design mistake, and if it is something like that, then it might take a little longer. The problem is we just don't know. So it could end up happening to where this is delayed a significant amount of time and Artemis 2 somehow ends up launching before it. I feel it's highly unlikely, but
I don't think so.
essentially, yeah, I don't think so either, but it is worst case scenario essentially. Um,
Yeah, it's
but
gonna be a boring several months on the
oh
live stream
yeah.
front if that's the case, because there's no one else launching this frequently.
I
Yeah.
was getting so excited for Polaris Dawn.
Yeah, there's I for anybody that plans trips to the Cape, before you could plan maybe a 3-day trip and there was almost 100% guarantee you were going to see a launch.
Yeah, that's
Now
Yeah, we
it'll
have one like
be
tomorrow
weeks.
morning and then 2 more the upcoming week.
Yeah,
So 3.
SpaceX makes up about, I believe it's over half the launches already over the entire space industry. It's either at half or like over half of all the launches. So essentially, the cadence, like if there's a graph for how many launches there are per month, say, this month and likely the
Yeah.
next month,
So
like coming month
if you
or
go
so,
to
will
what
just
about
plummet.
it dot space, you can see the upcoming road closures. If you want to real quick, I'll put my stream here.
There you go.
So we have, so the next launch is going to be Acadia in T-minus 7 days.
Yeah, that's seeing a T-minus 7 days is a rare occurrence, to say the
Wait a
least.
second. Oh, it
Yeah.
is Rocket Lab.
Yeah. A lot of a lot of the launches have just
Oh,
been
yeah.
pushed back.
The Polaris Dawn launch, for
Yeah.
example.
So
Yeah,
that's
that's a
still on
bummer.
there.
TBD.
But
We're gonna see a lot of TBD for a
Yeah,
while. Hopefully
a
not
correct.
for
lot of
too long.
TBD.
But
Yeah.
Hopefully
But
not.
I actually
So,
I just
nope.
realized I never got around to this point, but it is supposed to be the furthest flight since Apollo 17 essentially.
oh wow, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Setting out
furthest distance from Earth.
Yeah.
correct that any human has
So,
been since Apollo 17.
yeah. And somebody asked about the upcoming road closures. So we're gonna have like full
Yes.
days, like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. from July 15th, 16th, and 17th.
Yeah.
And then we have the delay dates basically every day from now on.
Yeah.
We might have to do more work from the Red Line heli.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are looking at getting another flight soon. The only problem is whether there is not being cooperative. I mean, we've seen it recently with 2 back-to-back hurricanes within almost
Oh
less
yeah.
than a month of each other.
Yeah.
Even without hurricanes, there's still a lot of wind, a lot of rain, and not exactly safe to do. Well, it is likely safe in many situations, but we're not going to be able to get good photographs or good videos of anything. So,
Um.
yeah.
Yeah. Since we were kind of touching on space station. Did we have anything to cover about the Russian space station? As I see that in our notes here.
I don't think I have any photographs of that.
Okay.
Oh.
So I want to double check.
The
So anything you can talk about?
I know they had recently announced quite a few things. They essentially stated that they're going to be building another space station. In fact, uh, coming up, we might not be able to have it this episode, but likely on the next one. I have been doing quite a bit of research around space stations because there has been a plethora of space station news, not just but basically from anyone and everybody that is building a space station. There has been some sort of news within the last week or two. For example, India just recently announced that their space station that they have been planning. This is a fair bit from now. It's about
Yeah.
2031, if I remember correctly, is the completion date, which is still fairly close, but
From Israel is building their own space station.
Oh
uh,
really?
Is that what you're saying? I
yeah,
haven't heard about that at all.
yeah, they've actually I believe it's 2035. That's likely why, because it is a fair ways away and there's a lot
Yeah.
of other space station news that has kind of overshadowed it. But essentially they announced recently that it would be almost double the original planned size.
Wow.
We've also
Now,
seen
is the
uh
ISS still scheduled to be deorbited on in 2025, or are they trying to extend
oh,
that?
not 2020. It's 2031, I believe, is the
Oh really?
current
Okay,
date.
so another
Yeah.
6 years.
And well, it's because one of the problems is they don't really have a way to deorbit it as of now. They just recently, this was on a recent episode as well. So if you want to get the latest space updates, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and we'll be sure to keep you updated on everything. But essentially, NASA recently contracted SpaceX to use their infrastructure from Dragon, essentially their expertise with Dragon and everything like that, to produce a vehicle that can deorbit the International Space Station in the early 2030s.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Maybe have all the
It'll
thrusters on one side facing up.
yeah, it'll be going
So
out in a blaze of glory.
didn't 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 I read some? I think I read something to rephrase that here real quick, to bring the ISS down like without having it burn up completely. Wasn't there a
Unf-
plan, something like that?
there had been some discussions about it, but the problem is any maneuver like that, the ISS is in a very important orbit essentially. Low Earth orbit is already getting very
Yeah,
crowded, and say so assuming like at this point there wouldn't be any crew on the International Space Station.
of
They'd be
course
on
not.
yeah, they'd be on other space stations. But essentially if there were any maneuver that say detaching a module to try and bring it back, that comes with some risk, and it comes with some extra expenses. Now, by the 2030s, hopefully, we should be seeing Starship flying regularly. And maybe at that point, SpaceX will be like, hey, we'll just bring down some of the modules for you. No problem. Uh, that would be awesome. But it does come with a lot of risk.
Yeah,
And if
of course.
there's anything that goes wrong, it risks essentially creating the largest
Space debris
cloud
field
of
in
space
history.
debris. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be
Because
Yeah.
dangerous.
yeah,
So
and the
nobody wants the ISS to burn up in a huge inferno, but it will
yeah,
be very hard to get like
Well,
modules
if they do,
down.
we really want it to burn up completely, not just break apart. Yeah.
yeah, they will have yeah, they'll probably just put it in a designated area. Usually it's just off the coast of South America. It's like between the coast of South America and Australia, which is like I believe it's called Point Nemo, but it's essentially the furthest spot you can get from any human ever. In fact, if you went there as a person, the closest people you'd be to are usually the people on the International Space Station.
So let's put up a view of the International Space Station here.
Yes. The so currently uh and along with the International Space Station, there has also been oh, yes, regarding the Russian space station, the they essentially announced that the core module, the first module of that new Russian space station that they've been talking about, will be essentially a reused module
Oh,
from that they intended for the ISS originally. So it was built for the ISS, um, similar to the newer module that just recently docked, but did have some problems and ended up sending the ISS into a gigantic spin. But other than that, yeah, it's similar to that module
give
and
me one
just has
second
not been used.
because I just got sent a picture of this
Okay.
and
The Russian
maybe,
segment there.
yeah. So,
Yes.
Okay.
here we go.
So you
Oops.
can see that's essentially the planned Russian space station.
Yeah.
This looks like the very early days of the ISS, really.
Yeah, which makes sense because the early days of the ISS were essentially a Russian
Oops.
space station.
Yep.
Yeah, here we are again. Let me real
Yeah.
quick
And
zoom out a little bit.
yeah, you can
If
see
Yeah.
you can also see Russia's new crew capsule that they've been attempting to get off the ground for a little bit. I'm forgetting the name of it, but essentially they
Talking
plan
about
on
these here?
yes,
Are there? Okay.
yes.
I've
Uh,
actually explored the ISS in virtual reality, so I've got a pretty good concept of its size.
yeah.
Uh,
The yeah, so they have been working they're working to essentially get a space station of their own, which is why we've seen so much space station news recently, because everybody's trying to get a space station. We could go through the list of Russia, China has their space station now, India's working on theirs, the US has multiple companies working on one, from Blue Origin to I'm forgetting the name.
Yeah.
The They're the ones who are they're building one on the essentially part of the ISS first, and then they're going to detach it. Axiom. Yes, that's
Axiom
the name.
Yes.
Space.
Okay. Yep.
Yes. So they're uh essentially everybody's building a new space station. Even America's building another one just out of the moon. So there's been a ton of space station news. And regarding the
Are you talking
lunar
about
gate,
Gateway or?
yes,
Yeah.
the
That's one
lunar
I'm most
gateway,
excited about.
we've actually, and on that, we've actually seen some pictures from NASA. I had those yesterday because I'd planned on talking about it on yesterday's episode, but there was so much news to cover that we
Yeah.
didn't quite get around to it. But essentially, NASA just recently shared some images of their Gateway space station, and I'm gonna see if I can
Oh,
pull that up
some
real
new
quick
images.
while we talk about some of the other space stations as well.
Yeah.
Uh,
I know a
the
very, very inspiring person, and he says he wants to be the commander of the Lunar Gateway. So I'm very excited about this project here.
Felix.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
that would be neat. I mean, the the latest movie I think to feature a lunar station was the one with Brad Pitt, Ad Astra, I think. If you
mm,
haven't seen it, the opening scene takes place on a lunar base. It's pretty incredible.
Can't
So,
recall it right now.
I do actually remember that movie. To be
y-
honest, I kind of fell asleep during it though.
yeah, there's actually there's like a dune buggy chase. Pretty cool. So I won't spoil it, but I enjoyed it. So
Sutukani says that I love this kind of motherships with a central hub. Yeah.
Yes.
I always have to think about like Independence Day or alien movies like this, and then you just
yeah,
get all the swarms coming out there.
or if any of you played Homeworld on PC growing up,
Yeah.
yeah.
I should have that photo now that NASA
So
shared.
give me
So
one
what's the
second.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
give me one
Okay.
second.
Okay.
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I've got Felix here, so um, that's easy. That's the gateway build up.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can
Yeah.
also see they've got quite a few different modules for Gateway itself. It will be built kind of similar to the International Space Station, but much smaller. The interesting thing as well is that SpaceX is taking a huge part in Gateway, not only for construction but also supply, as NASA contracted SpaceX to build a lunar cargo dragon, essentially. I'm forgetting the exact name of it, but it's actually the interesting thing is it also looks very similar to Cygnus as opposed to Dragon itself, because this one does not intend to return to Earth, so it doesn't need a heat shield. It can basically just be a giant cylindrical module similar to the ones that uh, similar to Cygnus or to the rest or to the rest of the modules on the space station, essentially.
Can you not hear Nathan?
Hello.
It looks like Nathan's levels need to be raised a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If you can get closer to the mic, Nathan.
Right. Yes. Sorry, I've been having some technical difficulties recently with my microphone, so if I'm a little hard to hear, I do apologize.
Thank you, Tom.
Hopefully, it's not picking up my dog who is now asking for her lunch. She
I
almost
don't
made
hear
it the
anything.
full hour.
But yeah,
Yeah.
the gateway
Uh,
is supposed to be very interesting. Sorry.
so when is that supposed to when are the first modules supposed to go up here?
It should be. I'm forgetting the exact date, but I know the first one will be launching on a Falcon Heavy, and it'll
Okay.
be the Halo module, which is the habitation and logistics module, which we actually have a new picture of, which is what I was gonna.
We have.
Yeah. So here we go.
Yeah, nice.
This was actually only one of many pictures, because NASA not only shared pictures of the Halo module, but also of one of I believe it was IHAB was the other module, which is the essentially the module that the crew are going to stay in. So other than just this module,
Can you zoom that in a little bit? I'd like to take a
That's
closer
not
look
a
there.
rendering. That's an actual photo.
Ooh,
yes, that is an actual photo of
And
the
that's,
nice.
I think this
production
is
of
in Arizona, right? Or
Italy. It's
Texas,
being
Italy.
produced
Oh,
in
really?
Italy. Yep. It's
Okay.
because it's Talasalinia.
Oh, cool. That's beautiful.
Yep. So
Yeah, it
this
is.
module will be it's Halo, which is the habitation and logistics outpost, which will essentially provide um, power, propulsion, and habitation. It's essentially an all-in-one module to start the space station off. And you can kind of see it here. So there's the habitation, and then there's the logistics section. It's essentially two modules. They were supposed to be launched separately originally, but then the Falcon Heavy came along, and it was able to launch the entire thing all at once.
So no earlier than 2025 on to two SpaceX Falcon heavies, like the Halo and the PPE.
Yes, I believe that does sound correct. So pretty
Okay,
soon, the yeah, so they might even be ready by
that's.
the time Artemis 3 happens.
I mean, Falcon Heavy flies and the modules look. Yeah. Do we have any idea how much up to date the modules are?
And we can see the progress they've been making. Of course, when it
Yeah.
comes to space flight, schedules are optional essentially. Uh, the very rarely will anything be on track and on schedule. And everybody knows about Elon time for the most part, which is
Unless, come on, the Falcon Heavies are ready, and
I mean,
so it's really just the modules that need to be
yeah.
ready. And then how much time does it take for them, like, to reach the what is it, the lunar orbit?
It would be it's the exact orbit they're going to is called a near rectilinear halo orbit, which is essentially like a very eccentric lunar orbit. But uh, the Falcon Heavy does not provide the full launch. So it's powerful. The Falcon Heavy is one of the most powerful rockets we have right now, but it's not powerful enough to launch this entire gigantic module all the way to lunar orbit. So a lot of that is actually provided by. So these two are renders, obviously, but a
Yeah.
lot of that is provided by the Halo module itself. So you can't see it in this picture, but essentially right here, there is a gigantic ion thruster, one of the largest. I believe it's supposed to be the largest put in space. And ion thrusters are essentially extremely efficient engines that use um, specific gases mixed, basically launched by electrical currents to propel themselves. They're extremely efficient, but the problem is they provide very, very little thrust. So, for example, the Starlink satellites that could not properly raise their orbit, or likely cannot use these thrusters, had they had larger thrusters, they would have been able to, but they trade efficiency. They basically trade power for efficiency. And so, because this is such a large module, it is a large thruster compared to many of the other ion thrusters, but it's still going to take a decent amount of time to get to that proper orbit. So we'll see how long that's
And
supposed to
and
take, but it'll likely be a few months.
and you say, like, eccentric means that the orbit, that one point of the orbit is relatively close to the moon and the other one is
Yes.
relatively far, so it's like an egg basically going around the moon.
Yes, it is a gigantic, very
Yeah.
elongated egg.
All right, everybody, let's end this stream with a fantastic gateway having an eccentric egg-like orbit around the moon.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. And if you want to
Yes.
know more about this topic, Nathan said that he'd like to talk more about this.
Oh, yes. I will definitely be going over quite a bit of this. And of course, Felix will be as well on a future
Yeah.
episode. Uh, so if you're interested in that, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video so more people are able to find it and are able to get these daily space updates. Thank you, everybody who came around and saw the stream. Thank you, everybody who chatted. It was so nice talking with everybody, and I'll let
Yeah.
Stephanie take it from here, of course.
And thank you so much, Jordan, for being here. And everybody, please send over a happy birthday to Jordan's daughter. She turns 1 today. So happy birthday. Enjoy the rest of the day. And we see you again tomorrow at the next Space Roundup.
Thank you. Cheers, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.